Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Kinsey Grant Baker for Barchart, and we have a great interview on deck today. So without further ado, let's jump in. You know it. I know it. Your grandparents probably also know it, but they might not admit it. We need sustainable energy solutions to meet the demands of a changing climate. It's a simple reality. But solving the problems that reality introduces, not so simple. The dynamics of the energy industry are complex, nuanced, and variable. There are countless interests from different groups, lots of shifting tech standards, and an onslaught of energy demand that makes the need for solutions feel more pressing every single day. I mean, simply put, there's a lot going on. But there is good news. There are tech-forward companies rising to the occasion to create new solutions for our energy needs, no matter how volatile things might get. Today, we are going to hear from one such company. I'm very excited to welcome Brenmiller, COO and co-founder of Brenmiller Energy, a company that provides sustainable thermal energy storage solutions as a player in the space for decades now. Thank you so much for joining me today. How's it going?
Thank you, Kinsey. Thank you for having me. It's great.
Of course, yeah, I'm excited.
Really looking forward, to bring the story and get your audience, into clean heat and the clean heat industry.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one. We got the chance to touch base yesterday and chat just a little bit about this. I certainly learned a lot. I'm sure the people who are listening to this conversation and tuning in, watching us today, are going to equally learn a ton. So if you're ready, I think we can just dive right in with what I hope will be a helpful sort of lay of the land. I would love, if you could tell me sort of the elevator pitch for Brenmiller. What do you do? Why do you do it? And for how long have you been at it? Give me the sort of basics of your company.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about, where we came from before, we start the elevator pitch, because we have decades of experience in energy and renewable energy as a whole. We were developing, we had a company that was developing solar technologies in the 90s and then in early 2000. And this company was building the technology, and then we were building power plants using this solar technology. And we sold the company to Siemens back in 2009 for just under $500 million and remained a few years under Siemens. And we saw the massive need for something to bridge the intermittency of renewables with a client who need reliable supply of heat. We often think about, electricity, and we have our phone battery, we have our car battery, so we have the storage. But, electricity as a whole is only 17% of global energy. It's a niche. Electricity is a niche. Heat, by the way, is 60% of global energy. And industrial heat alone is 25%. Just industrial boilers that runs on gas or oil or coal in the East are 25% of global energy. So if you want to go to renewable energy or sustainable energy or just cheaper energy and more stable energy, that's the largest single part of, that's the Pareto. If you want to tackle, energy transition, that's the largest part you can handle. This is exactly what we are doing. So we saw this massive need, to connect between solar, wind, and the energy generator to industrial heat. I see you're sitting in New York. It's cold. You have district heating. You are running on gas. I mean, if you want to connect it with wind or with solar, you need some sort of a buffer. So you can use hot water tank. That's the most, I would say, popular and abundant solution you can find today. You can heat up a water tank, but if you want to go to higher temperatures, higher efficiencies, and you need something that can go, to 1,000 degrees, 600 degrees, industrial heat. And this is exactly what we have developed. We have developed, I would say, a battery that stores heat, a heat battery. Mm-hmm. You can charge it with electricity. It heats up like a toaster, but you can keep the heat and then discharge according to the customer demand. And the media we are using is very simple. It's crushed rocks, but the whole machinery, algorithm, software, when to charge, when the grid is available, how to keep the heat, how to make it a machine, a digital machine, turning rocks into a digital machine that can deliver the exact temperature, pressure, and volume on demand. This is what we did in the last 14 years. By the way, we personally financed and invested in the company for many years. We invested $40 million, the management here, on our own capital, and we are listed today on NASDAQ. And on the timeline, we are, after many years of developing, piloting, proving the technology, moving into sales right now. So we are in the early stage of revenues and growth, where we have signed the first 3 deals. We just announced that pipeline is already over $500 million, and we just started selling this year. So the market is endless. It's a $1 trillion market. I believe that we are one of the market leaders for sure, and for sure maybe the most, I would say, market-ready company, mature company out there. We already built a gigafactory to support the pipeline, so we can actually, install it, grow. We have built a global network of partners and developers that can locally support us in the target markets. We can maybe elaborate on target markets later on. And ready to grow, ready to bring in another, we have 3 contracts on the way. We have many coming up. And we are extremely optimistic, by the way, because we are already economical. We are not in the green premium market or subsidies. Wherever we go, we are bringing an offer that is get a discount on your current prices. The green flag is on top of the offering. That's a bonus. So that's a pretty sustainable offering.
Right. Yeah. And I appreciate the context here because, for a lot of people, when they try to understand power markets, electricity, just in general, the way that the contours of the energy market really operate, it can be confusing. I'm going to add a slide up here that your team shared to show just how this is not as confusing as it needs to be, right? This is a simplified version, I'm sure, of what has been many, many years of work and of effort and of, smart technology and implementing smart technology. But it is at its core something that is, that buffer service is something that will help a client to achieve their goals, help a client to, save money, sort of insert goal here. Tell me a little bit more about who those clients are. You mentioned that you're at the early stages of revenue and growth. Can you explain a little bit more who the ideal customer is for Brenmiller products?
Right. And also, by the way, part of the innovation is the business model. We are not selling these boxes. We are selling everything as a service.
Right.
So we are mainly in front of the large industrial players, food and beverage, pulp and paper, hospitals, chemistry, materials, pharma. Almost everything you are now eating, sitting, touching was made with heat and mainly with steam. And this is pretty amazing. Everything we touch was previously, had some process with heat. So we are coming to these, some of them are companies that they have, multi-year plan to decarbonize. Some just needs a critical solution because the gas prices are volatile, are crazy. They are losing their business because of the volatility of gas prices. I'm talking about mainly in Europe now. And we provide them with hedging, a green solution. And so we have a project now, for example, with a subsidiary of Heineken, a very large brewery that we are replacing their heavy fuel boilers. We have a state-owned hospital, a large hospital, again, replacing heavy fuel boilers. We have a pet food manufacturer, a large company in Eastern Europe. We are replacing gas boilers. The model there is amazing. We are giving them discounts over gas prices. European gas is connected to Russia mainly, extremely volatile, no security. So this also sits, on the security quarter. Now, for every system in many projects, we have 2 clients. This is an extremely favorable model for us because we get paid by the off-taker, by the pet food manufacturer. But when we charge the system, we work with the grid operator saying, we get your electricity whenever you want to give it, whenever the grid is congested. And in countries where you have high penetration of renewables, and it's across Europe and in many states in the US, the grid is running crazy. Okay, and the grid operator needs, in Germany, for example, 50% of the minutes a year, the grid operator needs to burn electricity fast. And we are very good at it. Giant toaster. So we get paid to burn electricity, but this is our fuel. And then we get paid again to discharge it as heat. So we have one system, two clients. On top of it, in Europe, you get subsidies and grants. So that's, for the near future, a very nice business model, even though these are the early years of the technology. In the future, of course, you can improve efficiencies, prices, temperatures, and still, keep it extremely, I would say, economical.
Yeah, certainly a favorable setup to have one business, two customers. Yeah. You mentioned volatility, that this could serve as something of a hedge against price fluctuation for gas. I would love to hear a little bit more about how you think about volatility, knowing that the current reality that we are all living in is one that is truly marked by volatility. I come to you speaking from the perspective of somebody living in the US. The new Trump administration has made certainly energy, and I think conversations about energy as well, a pretty key area for this first 100 days. We had drill, baby, drill, an energy crisis on day one, a lot of, environmental regulation rollbacks, just in general, a lot of potential policies that could impact energy costs, redirection of investment, things like this that produce volatility. How are you anticipating what the next 4 years might bring in terms of volatility, and subsequently what that might mean for your customer base moving forward?
Well, I think that the companies that will be hit from the local US situation are companies that relies on green premiums and subsidies. Mm-hmm. If you are competitive to natural gas and you are passing the CFO, not the chief sustainability, and the business is on. And now, so we are providing hedging to natural gas prices. Mr. Trump is really helping us with the volatility of the market. And again, we are enjoying the spread in the electricity prices. And then again, still a major part of the electricity is manufactured by gas, and renewable trend in Europe, it's already 50%. In the next 4 years, things are going to get built because they are already financed. They're already either or in construction or shovel ready. And this is going to bring a lot of noise into the grids. So you need some devices to balance it. So you can balance first with, a dynamic pricing. In these hours, we have a lot of electricity, get it almost for free. In these hours, these are peak hours, you're going to pay 100 times higher than the average price. Don't buy electricity in these hours. So if we can buy in the lows, and sell it in the highs, and this is exactly what we do, we have an amazing solution. Okay, so you use dynamic pricing, but you're still left with 20-30% of matchmaking you need to make. Again, we provide this service. We are extremely efficient. I didn't mention that we convert electricity to heat at 97% efficient. That's almost like the perfect conversion. So we are really good in buying electricity and turning it into heat. And I think that it's going to get much worse for the markets before it gets better. So we're going to enjoy the next 3-4 years in an extremely volatile market. So, keep on the good job. Thank you for, shaking the markets. I think that's the perfect business background for us.
Yeah, it's always interesting to speak with, leaders like yourselves who volatility is not necessarily a scary word. It might actually be a business win for what you're working on.
No, same like capital markets, we can make money on volatile markets, not on a standard day.
Absolutely. And there's another element here that I think, sometimes can be what I would say is a loaded word like volatility for retail investors who might be tuning into this conversation. One of those is stability, or maybe rather the lack of stability and instability in the power grid is something that is a huge topic of conversation for people in the know in energy. Most of us kind of walk into a room, flip on the lights, and don't really think about it. But there is just massive increases in demand, especially throughout the energy transition, as we're talking electrification and just in general tech changes and system changes. Ensuring that people can get power when they need it, when they want it, and do that reliably is a big challenge, and increasingly is pulling in a lot of talent of smart people to try and solve some of these problems. I would love to hear a little bit more of just your general perspective on overall grid stability and how Brenmiller as a company approaches grid stability as a problem with a solution.
Yeah, you can follow our latest announcement. We have joined in JVs or other partnerships with some of the largest grid operators or grid service providers. What does it mean? They are first helping to stabilize the grid. Also, the grid is a pipe, okay? And you need to utilize this pipe to be loaded 24/7. So flexibility, that's the holy grail. Mm-hmm. If you are not a flexible customer, in Germany, for example, Germany is always, like the example of the world for many things, energy also. So the grid by far is the most important asset. The panels, the blades of the wind turbine, this is nothing. The grid, this is the main thing you need to grow and manage. You need to utilize it 24/7 and make sure it's 100% full. And you need devices like ours to control, mainly, by the way, the load of the factory of the client. I mean, the grid connection is something that you are paying today, prices that you cannot believe how high the grid connection cost is in Europe. But if you are flexible, you can get a grid connection. If you are not flexible in the next upcoming years, you can't build a factory or increase your capacity. That's crazy. So really soon, it's going to be a condition to get a license for your building or factory, so you can go offline when we ask you to go offline, okay? And then you will need normal batteries like lithium-ion, but in industrial application, 80% is heat. So you need a heat battery, and the fact that heat batteries are coming into market, that's a fact. That's for sure. Now it's just a matter of how fast the adoption will happen. And I think that this is one of the main solutions for grid stability.
Yeah. And it's, the idea that so much of this future that you're illustrating for us tends to kind of sound like a foregone conclusion, right? We have a certain amount of certainty when it comes to figuring out what the future of the grid looks like, what the future needs of that grid will be. I would love to, with that, kind of pivot to talk a little bit about the competitive landscape. You mentioned at the beginning of this conversation that you're farther along in the process than some of the other big players or maybe small to medium-sized players in this space as well. I would love to just hear a little bit of your perspective on what the future might look like for this like clean renewable energy reality that we're working toward. Tell me a little bit more about how you view the competitive landscape, the competitive field, and tell me more specifically about why timing matters in sort of surveying the rest of who's doing this.
Well, that's the most conservative market in the world, the largest, the most conservative. It takes a lot of time to get into corporates, to bringing in a new technology. Think about the brewery we are now building. It's 40,000 bottles an hour. If you stop it for 2 hours, I mean, that's it. So you really need to be, mature, well-proven, a professional, not just in developing technologies, also building, operating, and making sure that it stays on. Now, there are many technologies that are now being built for all sorts of flexibility. I'm going to focus on the heat side of things, okay? Mm-hmm. So thermal batteries, today, you have more than 30 companies that are developing technologies in many stages. Some of them are going to the hard-to-abate industries, extremely high temperatures. They're going to be in steel mills and melt whatever. We are not there. We took a conservative approach to serve the 80%, the range of medium temperatures, conventional industry. We prefer to build 500 projects in 10 years rather than to build one project 500 times bigger in 15 years' time. So this is a product approach. Now you have technologies that stores heat in salt, in bricks, in carbon. By the way, that's like the inside the box. I think it's not the only things that matters. You have a lot of IP outside the box, but also you need to put something that is mature, that people can buy and install today. And then this is like the first iPhone, but you need to sell the first iPhone before you market iPhone 9. Okay, so we are well experienced. We're coming out of the industry. We know what the bank will finance, what an engineer will approve. We didn't want to be tomorrow on the Scientific American. We want to be in Financial Times. And having said that, it doesn't mean that we are not developing. We have 5-year-old R&D plan. We're going to go to extremely higher temperatures throughout the years. We have already a few generations pipelined of the product. In terms of competitive landscape, you have around 6 companies based in the US. Bill Gates personally invested in all of them. So I think he believes that something's going to happen in the thermal batteries landscape. You have a handful of companies that are mature enough to be close to commercial. Most of the companies are startups, early stage, still in the in the demo side of things. But it's like this is not a winner takes it all situation. It's an ocean. In the ocean, you're going to have speedboats, air carriers, so many ships for so many needs. And in this multi-trillion market, all we need to do is find our market, grow the company, multiply it every year, and make sure we keep on being relevant, because you don't have to win over the competition. You just have to be, good at what you do, and we have a market for 10 years.
Yeah, it's a great point. I love the idea of thinking of sectors or industries as the ocean, and there are many different ways to get around, many different needs as we're navigating throughout an industry like that, certainly. So as we close out today, Nir, I would love to just hear a little bit more about what excites you. We've talked a good deal about what the future might hold, what the future looks like for this space, for storage in general, and how we achieve these, sustainable, scalable solutions to the storage problem and the grid reliability problem. I would love to know on a more personal level, what excites you about the work that you're doing? What makes you feel really, ready to go for the next year, 5 year, 10 years?
That's a massive question, but yeah. Listen, I'm all in. I'm all in with our money, with our time, with our everything, our friends, our team running for so many years together, because it looks so trivial to us. It's just out there. I mean, the fact that the technology, by the way, we started 14 years ago. Think about the technology you thought about 14 years ago. And when you're getting into the market, it's the most, right on time, right on. I mean, we are lucky, and maybe we also thought right. But I think that we are creating a change. I think that, 5 years from today, it would be just amazing to see the change that was made in the industrial heat market. I think that we have contributed to this change. We're not going to be alone, but I think we have contributed pretty, we were part of the team making this change. Something is burning inside to show the world that, that we are a billion-dollar company locked in a microcap body. I mean, take a look. We have hundreds of millions of dollars of pipeline, a gigafactory financed by the European Union, offices all around the world, so many people selling the technology, AAA corporates, Fortune 500 companies in processes for years. We are passing everything. We built a power plant in Italy for the largest European utility, and listed, around $10 million. I see it as my mission to bridge that gap. Okay. And this is what, this is the fuel, for this type of conversations. I want people to see and be aware that that this is not just, some futuristic market cap, micro cap idea that maybe will pass FDA one day, maybe not. We passed FDA. We are selling, and I think that, we put our name on the company's name. I think that it says it all. Okay, we put our reputation, we are up for the challenge, and I believe that 2-3 years from today, we'll take a recap into this call, and we can see if the plan, if we are according. By the way, 14 years, we said almost everything we promised was we ticked the boxes. The problem was just it took the timing. It takes more time. As an entrepreneur, you're always optimistic that you can do things faster, but this is such a change to the energy market that it just takes time to spread the word, to convince. But now, once you're selling, in 4 or 5 months, we're going to have a system fully operational, fully commercial, in a huge Heineken facility. I think that will be the inflection point for the company, and we look forward to it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful note to end on, I think, because it does, hit home one more time, this point that you made, that this is a real market, a real pipeline. These are real changes. It does take time. I can attest, you can, anybody listening can attest that it always takes longer than you think, but it has been, really wonderful, Nir, to hear your perspective, to understand a little bit more about what you're working on. I, as I mentioned, have learned a ton in our conversations, and I'm sure everybody who's listening into this has as well. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Kinsey. I invite you to do the next live from the project.
Okay, right? Yeah, let's do it. I'm in.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Nir. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.